We're just going to talk.
Around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings. Watch the countdown timer.
Away we go again. Lost like I'm lost on purpose. If found, please return to. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home, My vision blurry, I'm paying the cost. I'm not enough. In fact, it's even better when you're not involved. When I miss your call, I feel that I evolve. Cause at your mention, I am more dependent than a college student on their parents or an old person on their pension. Not to mention, when you hit me on WhatsApp without attention and a bad booty bitch walks in, she looks tempting. Look, my Achilles heel is when I said what I feel, you said, baby, come home. And I don't think that I will, cause all this motherfucking stress is gonna get me killed. Woo. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home,
Huddle around as Climbing the Pocket Network presents Jason and the boys talking everything Minnesota Vikings.
No, I can't play these games. No, you can't disrespect and call me names. Sending me signals like you about to switch lanes. Well, go on, do your thing. Go on, do your thing. I mix champagne and propane, get lit. I'm trying to forget all the things that you said, all the things that we did. Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home, Girl, don't you know I'm lost on the road. I've been here before when I get home, Watch the breakdown. And I get home when I get home. You just gonna act like we normal now. Good luck. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now. Don't you try to call me with that bullshit, telling me you're sorry. You act too quick. That's somebody else's problem now. You're somebody else's problem now.
Hey everybody, it's Dave here, and it's time for another In The Huddle. So far tonight, we have the great and the one and only Flip Mozzie. How you doing, Flip?
I'm doing well, Dave. Glad to be on the show.
Miles is also joining us as a regular member and founding member of Climbing the Pocket. Miles, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing good. Good. Ready to
Good.
get going here.
Yes, we have things to talk about. Shall we start with last Sunday?
I think we got to start with last Sunday, the the conference championships, two very good games between some, high-tone quarterbacks and opponents. So let's just take them one at a time. Starting with the first game, Buccaneers versus Packers. That game, the Buccaneers win 31-23 to go to a home Super Bowl in Tampa in 2 weeks. Tell me what you thought about that game, Miles. What's the first thing that pops into your head when thinking about last Sunday?
Wait, wasn't it 31-26 because the Packers kicked a field goal? because
Oh,
they
there
thought
you
they were going to
go.
get the ball
There
back.
you go. 31-26.
I mean, from an entertainment standpoint, the game was good. It was fun to watch. I mean, there was some sloppiness. I mean, I think Tom Brady. Wow, the Buccaneers should not have won that game. Like he tried to give that game away in the third quarter. He really did. But like their defense stood up strong against the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, and not many people have been able to stop the Packers all season. But it was a good game. It was fun to watch. I really enjoyed some of the stupid decisions the Packers made. That's always fun. Yeah, shit. We could get into the fact of the fourth down situation. I mean, we could talk about that if we want to. Kicking a field goal with 2 minutes left, thinking, oh, we got 3 timeouts. Just handing Tom Brady the ball back and expecting to get it back to try to win the game made no sense to me.
Should we talk now, or should we wait until our favorite analytic comes on the line?
Oh, that's true. We could wait.
What's up, Freddie? So for me, there was so much more in that game. I know everyone will hinge on the last 2 minutes because that's true of every close football game. But I look at plays like the Mike Evans deep ball that he tips the ball to himself just on a prayer. Tom Brady throws that pass.
Oh, that was the Godwin. That was the Godwin. Yep.
Godwin. Chris Godwin 50-50 ball to put them in the red zone. Like if he doesn't catch that, we're talking completely different game from the jump. And then you have, the next play after that 50-50 ball is the Leonard Fournette magical 20-yard touchdown run. Mm-hmm. I mean, stepping over guys in the backfield, beating guys around the corner, stiff arm, spin move, falling over Packers in the end zone. That play sticks out.
That's top 5 draft pick Leonard Fournette.
Oh my God! Like where did that even come from?
Man, I don't even know.
To see that was amazing. We're just gonna rain on the Packers all day. The fact that they got 0 points off those turnovers was just hilarious to me. And like you got Aaron Rodgers, and I know they had a banged up offensive line, but that's really no excuse. And for me, the reason why the Packers lost that game, people are going to criticize their draft, but no matter where you want the talent to come from, the Packers receivers were an issue. There were times in that game where Aaron Rodgers made them look great, but there were other times where, like, every time Equanimous St. Brown gets a target, I'm like, I'm having to remind, how is that guy still in the league, let alone playing for a perennial playoff team? It's just
there you go,
wild.
Clifford. There you go, Clifford.
Yeah, you see, it's like all we needed was the Packers to lose, because when the Packers are winning, the chat, they hate on us. But when the Packers lose, I'll take this all day. If y'all are going to hate on the Packers instead of us, we'll take it.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of the Packers interceptions, a couple of them I saw as fluky. Tom Brady definitely didn't have his best game, but man, it was so much fun to just see that Green Bay Packers offense just get shut down by a good defense. We've seen it before. I'm not saying who, but at Lambeau, there was another team that beat those Packers 28-22.
And they didn't even have a good defense. Last year. And they don't even have a good defense.
The DJ Wanham and Aaron Rodgers back. We've seen it before. So to me, Tampa just made so many plays on the defensive side of the ball, and they had the better offensive talent.
I agree. And as Mary said, she loved that game. I did too.
I did too.
Tampa started out well. I thought Brady started out well. There were some drops. The third quarter, Green Bay had figured out how to get pressure close to him to make him move. That helped drive those interceptions. One of them was obviously his fault. But the end of the game and then the results afterwards, the press conference with Aaron Rodgers saying things are up in limbo in the offseason, including himself, which he tried to backtrack today, saying, well, I meant the guys that are leaving and their contracts are done. But if you meant that, you wouldn't have said including yourself in your postseason or your post-game press conference. So things are a little bit.
I mean, he came out today on the Pat McAfee show, I think it was. He came out today and talked about that very quote and basically just said he's probably going to be the starting quarterback in 2021 for the Packers. Like, I mean, he's not going anywhere. The Packers aren't going to trade him, and he's not just going to up and retire. I just don't see that happening. So
he's not going anywhere. People are reading way too much into that.
I think so too.
Now, I did hear today that according to league sources, his agent's asking for a new contract.
I could see that, even though he's got 3 years left on his current deal.
He's got 3 years, but it's like $22 million, $25 million.
Well, and the guarantees, I think, kick out. Yeah. The guarantees stop, I think, probably after a year or two here. And he wants that guarantees that, even with Jordan Love being drafted, he wants the guarantees in his pocket that, hey, no matter what, I'm still the guy. So he doesn't want to be what do they call that?
I'll be shocked if Jordan Love ever plays a legitimate non-injury snap for the Green Bay Packers.
He'll be like Garoppolo for New England.
Pretty much.
And they may have drafted him for that to put a fire under Aaron Rodgers' hindquarters. But Aaron Rodgers right now makes cheap money at a little over $20 million and $25 million versus people like Goff and Cousins and
I gotta look up that contract.
A lot of the other ones.
Well, can we talk about Can we talk about one more play in this game?
Sure.
The Scotty Miller touchdown before halftime.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Soon to be free agent Kevin King.
Our boy Eric Thompson is saying we need to donate to Kevin King's charity because
like the Buffalo Bills like to do.
How do you let that happen over the top? That was worse than Cameron Dantzler against the Seattle Seahawks, man.
Yeah.
That was.
Hey, Chris Carter came out and said he thinks that Kevin King underestimated him because he's white, and I laughed. he might have because Scotty Miller's fast as shit.
Clifford, you're right. He did throw LaFleur under the bus.
And I mean, I would too.
I'd be pissed.
LaFleur took the ball away from him. What? Of course, I'd have thrown his ass under the bus too if I was Rodgers.
Now, this is where I don't know if you've seen
touching it yet.
Annie Angor does her things. If you don't know, Annie Angor is a female comedian who does, quote, Zoom calls where she dresses up in a T-shirt of the league or the Packers or whoever, right? Yeah. And she put out hers today, and it was absolutely hilarious. And if you haven't seen it, go look it up on Twitter because it's funny, and she hits that topic. But anyway,
it's always good to start a podcast by ripping on the Packers. So
always.
All right, let's touch base on the next game then. You got Chiefs versus Bills. It was like Chiefs 52, Bills 17, something like that.
It seemed
probably a little exaggerated. The score is so bad that Stephon Diggs started throwing a hissy fit. That's when you know.
Stop. He wasn't throwing a hissy fit. Stop. We're not. Don't. Man.
That's all I'm saying, man.
Did you notice the Chiefs were doubling him up every single play?
Of course.
That makes sense.
Cole Beasley was playing on a broken fibula.
Yep.
And John Brown looked like that. Like, John Brown didn't look like he wanted to be there. So, take away the best offensive player and make Josh – and the Chiefs had the perfect game plan for the Bills. I think a healthy wide receiver core and Beasley and John Brown probably do a little bit more against those DBs. I really do. But since they were banged up, they're hurt, I think. And Diggs is banged up too a little bit. I think it's easy to, and they're all banged up. Shit, this late in the season. But
we say banged up, but they were banged up and they rolled the Colts. And
no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, Cole Beasley had a broken fibula. So I mean, there's a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I think to that degree, though, I think Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs D coordinator, did a really good job of containing Josh Allen. He kept him in the pocket, but he also didn't let him rush up the middle. He had what I think I saw that they had like a D lineman spy him in the middle, so they didn't rush up the middle, and they forced him to stay inside the pocket. And if guys like Diggs are getting double teamed, triple teamed at times, you're trying to find guys to get open, and they couldn't do it. And the Bills have a good offensive line too, and they don't like to run the football either. So it's kind of like, well, this is all we can do. It looked bad, and the game you could tell the game was over by halftime, even if the score was somewhat close. Kicking a field goal before half too. What the hell were the Bills doing?
I think
kicking field goals instead of going for 7.
Couple moments. First, like you said, Miles, just Steve Spagnuolo and what the Chiefs did on defense to shut down the Bills, something that they weren't able, no other defense was really able to do all year. And yeah, we can say some of the receivers are banged up, but still, I think you look at Todd Bowles too. Todd Bowles, what a championship game for your defense. Definitely. Put your name back on the map. Same with Steve Spagnuolo. A lot of people forget that he was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants when they were winning those Super Bowls, taking down the Patriots with Eli Manning and a dominant defense. So, like, we're talking about some world-class defensive coaches here, and they're shown to be valuable at the final tier in the playoffs.
You know what I love about the Chiefs too, Flip?
Yeah.
Is their defense was meh. Their defense was meh all season.
Right.
But when it came down to crunch time, their game plans, like it feels like in the regular season they kind of just half-assed the defense because they know they're going to roll everybody by outscoring them. And
they didn't laser focus on the opponent.
Yeah.
Like they did
exactly.
In the playoffs. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. I love every aspect of that. They're like, we know we're going to score 35, 40 points a game with Patrick Mahomes. So we're going to get guys opportunities, get guys game experience, try new things in the regular season. But when it comes to the postseason, we're locking in and we're going to shut down those teams and we're going to study our opponents better than what we see other teams do. And so it's really impressive because, to have the Chiefs did it last season too. They have a so-so defense in the regular season, and you go into the postseason thinking, oh, they're a team that, should be, this should be a boat race. This should be that type of game. And they start shutting offenses down, and it's kind of crazy to watch.
Yeah. Moment number 2 I got to talk about is McCole Hardman. What an awesome first half for him to muff that punt. And the frustration is coming on the sideline, and you see it come in, and you see him just down and out. You see his teammates go over to him. So for him to turn around, get that 50-yard reverse, and then score the touchdown, that's just that's football. Those types of stories are why you watch the game. And, we like to see those moments over the course of people's of careers, but it's also just awesome to see in a course of minutes, just the roller coaster, the emotional roller coaster that is football. I thought that was awesome. So fast, and just another weapon just between McCole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. What are you going to do? I have no idea how to stop the Chiefs offense.
I don't think anybody in the league does. The closest one is the team that's going to have to is Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And they've got a good defense.
Yeah, but they don't have anybody that can run with Tyreek or Mecole Hardman. So I just don't.
What do you think about the Chiefs' defense and these cheap shots?
They definitely were getting under the skin of the Bills on Sunday, and that's why people were talking about the Diggs situation. And you see some of that stuff. That stuff was happening all game. I'm not just you though, Flip. That stuff
I know.
The Chiefs were definitely laying some cheap shots. Some of that stuff I don't mind. I don't mind a little bit of trash talk or anything like that. I think cheap shots are a little bit of a different story. I think you're trying to. There's ways to get under a guy's skin and to piss people off. Then there's ways to do it where you're being cheap. And so I think there's a right and a wrong way to do some of that stuff. I did love the Bills offensive line coming to Josh Allen's defense though. I'm a big fan of that.
That was like they had that was the third cheap shot. Like Chris Jones is throwing punches and they're suplexing guys, and that Josh Allen tackle that started that whole thing, that was way after the whistle.
Right.
Yeah. So I would have been pissed if they had only called that on the Bills. I'm happy they got the penalty on the Chiefs there. But yeah, it's great to see the offensive line running the Josh Allen.
Like, it was, what was it? The Chiefs had 3 penalties and the Bills had 1 on that call?
Yeah.
Other way around.
Other way around.
Either way.
Yeah.
Right?
Offset.
But it offsets.
Offset.
And people don't
funny.
know the rules that you could have 20 penalties on one side and 1 on the other. It offsets because all it's got to be is offsetting or 1-to-1.
Well, it should be. And like the thing with Diggs is like
3 tech, Freddie. We don't need a guard early.
Freddie, I haven't even looked at the draft yet. I'm still watching.
Freddie,
I'm still watching these games.
Go back and watch last night's show. We addressed those issues on mock draft Mondays.
The thing with Diggs is I just don't understand why we're pushed back into the corner, like to these corners with him. Like I definitely think Diggs was right. I would have loved for him to stay on the Vikings. I think the Vikings made a mistake by trading him away. Diggs gets too hot-headed sometimes. You know, he loses his composure. And
is that Eric Eager?
That's Eric Eager in the dark.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
I'm here, guys.
It's almost like Howl's in front of us.
Are you on an...
That's great.
Where are we right now? Are we on an airplane?
No. My normal Tuesday routine took an hour longer than it normally does. So I'm driving back from a state that has different laws than my state does.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully the vaccination went well.
They don't have PFF limos, Eric? Damn.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, look, once we get them though, I think the climbing the pocket folks are going to be the first ones on it.
Sweet.
The first ones on it.
Bet.
I'm just hopeful we can somehow meme this. It looks like Gollum is about to appear out of the shadows from whatever is going on down there.
Freddie. There you go. There you go, Freddie. Exactly.
Yeah. He's on it.
Yeah.
So
you want to talk about gambling? That's flip.
What I'm trying to say about Diggs is like, yeah, the guy loses his composure, and like, do we need to call Stephon Diggs a leader just because he wants he has a higher standard for offense? Like, no, we don't need to do that. The guy's not a good leader. He's a great.
No. We can't sit here and say that he's not a good leader when we've literally heard his teammates call him a good leader. This Buffalo Bills team, there's an article. No, hold on. There's literally an article written from the Buffalo Bills roster and their team saying, Stephon Diggs, we are literally the life force of Stephon Diggs. He is our leader of this team. He came in and literally brought in the leadership that we've been looking for, and he's driving the bus of this team. Like, he's literally they literally came out and said that. So we can't sit
he's
here and say
literally
that.
leading them into hissy fit losses in the AFC Championship game.
Stop. He had one blow up over watching, like you even talked about. He got suplexed into the ground. They were being
He blows up all the time. He blows up all the time.
He blew up once late in the game. Who cares? What is
this year? We've seen him blow up multiple times before. Multiple times.
Like,
his style of leadership is to blow up.
That doesn't make him a non-leader. It doesn't make him a non-leader.
Why does he have to be a leader? Why do
leaders all have to be the same? Why are leaders like
they do? I don't think Harrison Smith is a leader. I don't think Daniil Hunter is a leader. That doesn't mean that's not a knock against them. That doesn't mean
why? But like why? Because they're quiet?
No, because I don't see them rallying the troops around them.
There's different types of leadership. So So just because you don't see a rah-rah guy, just because you don't see the guys on the sidelines being the ones being like, hey, get your ass up, we got to move, that doesn't mean they're not leaders. That's what I'm talking about.
We saw Chris Carter cuss out Jimmy Hitchcock numerous times.
Multiple times.
Sure.
In the years where the Vikings were, the late 90s, and Denny was starting to lose some of that early the honeymoon, right? And he needed his best player to be a dick, right? And here's the thing, did y'all hear the Kyle Rudolph on Ben Lieber's podcast complaining about not getting targets?
Oh, I've seen clips or quotes, but I didn't listen to it.
Do we think? My issue is I feel like with Diggs, it's he had his way of trying to steer. He had his way of trying to steer the direction of the team, and I think he earned that. I think he earned that right in a way that many people don't think he's earned that right, and that to me is because no one's gonna get at Kyle Rudolph for being I want more targets. He's been on the team for years. He's had a good career, and it's but is he as good? Does he deserve that platform as much as Diggs? In my opinion, no.
I agree.
The proof is kind of in the pudding, because my thing is Sunday's game said more to me about Kansas City than it said about Buffalo. Buffalo's clearly the second best team in the AFC, and they deserve to be in that.
Right.
And we're talking about a quarterback who had a historical rise in completion percentage, a historical rise in QBR, all that stuff, and Diggs was the one variable that changed. And I think not to say that the Vikings should always have to have that scarlet letter on their chest, but it makes now you have to learn from it, right? So when you're thinking about Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins being I had to tell Justin Jefferson we're a run first team and to calm down a little bit, you have to learn from this, because Jefferson, your first was Moss, right? Then it was Dave. I mean, you don't want Jefferson,
but Moss was not a leader. Moss was not a leader.
But why? He doesn't have to be. Who cares?
That's what I'm saying. Diggs doesn't have to be a leader.
But he is a leader to them. That's what I'm saying. It's this whole idea that you keep wanting.
He wasn't a leader to us. He wasn't.
How do we know that?
Because a leader doesn't say, "I'm good. I'm going to leave and get mine." That's not a leadership move.
But my thing is I don't think that was what happened. He took a deal with Minnesota that was relatively modest,
right?
And he, the biggest miscalculation was the Vikings misunderstanding what 2017 and 2018 were. 2017 was a magical year that wasn't going to be repeated, and then 2018, frankly, was a decent approach to playing football that just didn't work because they played a tough schedule, and Kirk wasn't exactly what they thought he was. And then they go into 2019 and they push the offense into a different place, and because they play a relatively easy schedule, they go 10-6, and it's sort of like Carroll's Seahawks that go 6-1 down the stretch after sort of neutering Russell Wilson. It's you're learning the wrong lessons. And the lesson the Vikings should have had was, we have one of the best receivers in all of football on a really modest deal, and if we can't make him happy, we're failing, because that's one of our edges.
I 100% agree the Vikings failed, and so often when I bring this up, people want to act like I'm justifying how the Vikings treated Stephon Diggs. No, that's not what I'm saying. Stephon Diggs had every right to leave, given the bullshit he was going through and the bullshit that the Vikings were putting him through. But the fact of the matter is, if you consider yourself a leader and responsible for 53 other people on that team, then you are invested in those players, and you as a leader are going to stick through that BS. That's just what a leader does.
But Flip, he literally did that. That's how, that's why people said
literally not.
No, he did, because people talk about this situation with Diggs didn't start in the offseason last year. It started the year before that. And Diggs came to the table and talked to the front office, talked to the coaching staff about his issues with the offense. And we literally have quotes of him saying, they weren't upfront with me. They lied to me. And when you lose that trust with people, how are you supposed to hang in there? Like we talked about this
for your teammates.
It's a fucking business, dude.
You don't think Kyle Rudolph had those moments where he wasn't happy with his targets? You don't think Kirk Cousins has had those moments where he's had to deal with 5 different coordinators?
Kirk Cousins has just got one of the biggest contracts. He's gotten 2 major contracts from the Minnesota Vikings. Well, the Vikings, Diggs literally went to the Vikings. Diggs went to the Vikings and said, "Are we really going to be a run-first team when you got me and Adam Thielen, and you're going to treat Adam Thielen better than you treat me?" And then the following year, they're going to go and give Adam Thielen a bigger contract than Stephon Diggs. Of course, he's going to feel disrespected.
Oh yeah, but that has nothing to do with leadership. That has nothing to do with leadership.
How are we categorizing Deshaun Watson then? Because I feel like Deshaun Watson's a leader, and to Miles' point, like Houston's done enough things that I think are shitty, similarly to the way Diggs perceived his situation in Minnesota. Does Watson asking for a trade make him a bad leader?
Or
I mean, literally, if a ship is sinking and you are the captain of that ship, and your response to the ship sinking is to be like, okay, I'm the first one off that ship. How is that leadership? That's the opposite of leadership. But this is a failed situation, so I'm going to save myself.
But what if let's say Houston decides, let's say that Houston can't trade Watson and he has to come back next year. If you're playing for Houston, do you view Watson any worse?
No.
If you're a player on Houston. See, that's like my thing is, I feel like Watson just wanted more out of Houston, and part of that's being a leader. But like sometimes things are irreconcilable, and I agree. And I don't think that detracts from somebody's leadership ability. I just think, and look, in this case with Diggs, the Vikings, whether by hook or by crook, ended up with a player who is amazing in Justin Jefferson. I think that the issue with Diggs now, if you're the Vikings, needs to be, how do we avoid the situation that got us in? Because the issue, and this is the same issue in Houston, man. Like Cal McNair's dad, when he was alive, said, "Hey, we can't let the inmates run the team or whatever." And then, funny, 2 years removed, like no one wants to play for you. I think you have to be careful if you're the Vikings of creating a systemic situation where players who have talent don't want to play, because you already have some disadvantages. Your climate is not the greatest. You haven't ever won it. Like you have some situations. Now they're a good franchise. They're not a bad franchise, but you have some disadvantages, and you don't want to compound them sometimes by being a place where you say, look, yeah, I know you got drafted by Minnesota, but don't learn from Diggs' mistake. Don't waste a year or two playing for less when they're not going to treat you right to begin with. This football is about the players now. And
I agree.
And if the Vikings don't see Justin Jefferson as the main course here, as far as what they're serving to their fan base, like it'd be a colossal mistake. And one that, again, I don't know. I think they learned from the Moss mistake by really, eventually buying into Peterson as the star and placating him to no end. Yeah. But they need to circle back and find that with Jefferson.
And we're seeing them do that. And we're seeing them do that too, Eric, to your point. They're showing Justin Jefferson everywhere. Obviously, they want him to win the Pepsi Rookie of the Year. I think he deserves that, fine. But like, they are trying to make him the new face of the Minnesota Vikings. At least that's what it feels like to me. And if that's what they're gonna do, though, they need to lean into the fact that if you're gonna make him the face of your team, you better make sure that he's the face he's the feature of your team and your offense. And if they're not going to do that, they're going to go into the same situation. It's not, but like, you keep making it about leadership rather than the fact that a team is pushing their star players away from out of the building.
star player and leadership are two different things. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that your star player does not have leadership qualities. There is nothing. Not every.
But nobody besides fans. But nobody besides fans are saying that.
One of the silliest things in the NFL is that the quarterback is automatically designated a team captain. That is crazy to me. You've got personalities from Carson Wentz to Russell Wilson to Jameis Winston.
I promise you, though, Flip, here real quick. I promise you from playing the game that the quarterback through that's the position in itself just is leadership. Like it has to be. Like you're not going to drive success unless your quarterback can be a successful leader. And that's just the way
your team is going to succeed or fail on.
That's just the way football works.
Yeah, your team is going to succeed or fail on the leadership ability of your quarterback. That's just the bottom line.
Yes.
So that translates to other positions as well, but not in the same sense, because Randy Moss, for example, an elite talent, Danielle Hunter, an elite talent. That does not automatically mean they have good leadership skills. When I say Stephon Diggs,
who are we to say that they have bad or non-leadership?
I'm saying that's not a diss. Saying a player doesn't have leadership skills is not a negative comment.
I'm saying you don't have the information at hand to say he is or isn't. And I don't either, and I shouldn't be saying he does. But everything we've heard from his former or current
so
teammates,
we've agreed that Stephon Diggs is neither a good nor bad leader because we don't have the right to say it.
I'm saying the only information I have is from his teammates and former teammates saying that he is. So therefore, I'm going to trust their information over fans that don't know. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the only information I have is the guy went through a tough situation and decided to leave that team instead of sticking with the players that he was apparently leading.
He didn't trade himself. Because he wouldn't be in Buffalo right now if it was his decision. I promise you.
Let Eric get two pieces in.
He would have stayed here if it was his decision.
We just have to be careful, I think, because I think like people who are outgoing and people like Moss, Percy Harvin played his best games with Randy Moss. Like I shy away from the idea that just because Moss talks shit about Childress and the Vikings franchise that he wasn't a leader, because he certainly motivated Percy Harvin to take his game up a notch in 2010. When they had, the Vikings surrounded Moss with some bad players, and a lot of them played a lot better than they would have with Moss there. I think the issue is that we have
never agreed to the idea that Moss is a leader, especially when you look at his other stints in the NFL. I'm sorry. And I love Randy Moss. He's a Hall of Fame player. He's an all-time great. He didn't have leadership skills compared to some other people in the league. And that's not a diss against him.
Yeah, I think, and I'm not saying that I think Miles was right. We're inferring something from outside, but I think that's where this conversation began, right? Which is Diggs is a fiery guy who voices displeasure in a way that traditionally, quote, leaders have not done, or, and there's stereotypes that go with that, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's what I'm saying. So there are stereotypes that we have lived with for years and years and years. And I think overfit. Look, Diggs was gregarious. He tossed his helmet, all this kind of stuff that we think of people who are, quote, out of control, when in reality, almost everything that Diggs did on the field was in the most controlled manner, right? Like I'm worried about, the labels that we apply to some players sometimes because they don't necessarily fit the traditional mold. And again, this isn't me saying that Diggs should be the captain of the team or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just me pushing back on the idea that he got moved out. Like he doesn't possess these qualities. Like, I don't know. To me, he seems to make everybody around him better. And that to me is the sign of a leader.
Yeah, we're just not going to agree. And again, it's not coming from a place where I have displeasure with Stephon Diggs. It's just like when I see, we don't remember all of the helmet tosses. It wasn't just one. It was like 2 or 3 times that he's taking 15-yard penalties after he scores a touchdown. We don't have sight on just the amount of cryptic tweets where if any quarterback was doing that to the extent that Stephon Diggs was, there would be serious scrutiny on that player.
Deshaun Watson's doing it right now.
Yeah.
Well, but even
not a leadership quality.
Chris Carter is one of the best players and one of the most esteemed players to ever play for the franchise. And he was the hardest dude on, like, Jake Reed's like his best friend, and he was an asshole to Jake Reed, like when they played and like all that.
Michael Jordan literally berated his teammates.
Right, but Michael Jordan went to bat for them and was pissed when he had to leave them. He never would have left them. He said, I never asked them to do anything that I didn't do myself.
Jordan retired halfway through his career twice
to play baseball.
Okay, like
I mean,
there was a documentary on it.
I think we all agree.
I watched the documentary. He was a great leader. That is not in the same ilk. Comparing Stephon Diggs to Jordan, are you fucking kidding me?
That's your issue. I'm not comparing them as players. You're talking about leadership. Did you watch the shit that he would say to his teammates?
I mean,
where did I say that Stephon Diggs?
Jordan.
Yeah, where did I say that Stephon Diggs did not show leadership quality because he was an asshole to his teammates? That's not what I said. I said he left his teammates. He left them.
Michael Jordan retired.
Oh my God! So you're the one drawing the parallels now.
Played baseball, and you're gonna tell me, that's just my issue. I just want consistency with what you're trying to argue, because you're varying degrees of who gets to be a leader and who gets to be viewed as a non-leader.
I'm not varying degrees at all. I'm saying Stephon Diggs is an uber talented player. He's extremely fiery. He seems to be an amazing brother, but I don't see leadership as one of his obviously positive qualities. It is not up there with me. I mean, he has negatives, he has positives, like every human being. That's all I'm saying. So this idea that everything we say about Diggs has to be positive just doesn't bear fruit with me.
I'm not saying that.
I agree with you. I do think that that's a risk, right? That people have when they're trying to prove a point about what happened in Minnesota, is that Diggs can't do any wrong, when in reality, like, obviously there were issues there.
Oh, definitely. I'm not trying to say there wasn't either.
My pushback is always this idea is against the idea that there was a character flaw because he wanted to win football games. And I think that and look, you take wins and losses. Like I said, LaFleur was the best coach in the NFC title game, and I obviously have to take an L there. Like we take L's. Everybody who said Diggs was a cancer and good luck in Buffalo and go, hey, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, like, has to take an L. Like that's right. But it doesn't mean, and this is obviously me preaching to me right here. It doesn't mean you have to teabag Vikings Twitter every time Diggs scores a touchdown. Because
exactly,
but at the same time, it's important. We don't want, just because we're afraid of being wrong, we don't want to diminish Diggs' accomplishments. They're great, and Diggs deserves all the accolades he's going to get this year. And look, the Vikings have made great decisions in the past. They've made bad decisions in the past, and luckily this one, even though I think the process wasn't very good, ended up being okay. Because they ended up with Jefferson. Hopefully what they do is they learn from this and buy into their franchise player, because that's really where they missed the fact that in the NFL, when you look at the 4 teams that are left in the playoffs going into the week, it's wide receivers for days. And you thought you took a swing of the bat where if Philadelphia takes Jefferson and you take Rager, you have 1 wide receiver this year. And that you can't win with that. I mean, And to me, like, they have to understand that what they've stumbled upon in pick 21 is gold, and they have to steward that well.
And take advantage of it.
I just
Exactly.
think
Game plan with it in mind.
Yep.
it's
Real quick-
just they're so far from that. But I mean, there's just a lot of steps to that when we get to 2021. But Miles, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and to Eric's point too, like what the Vikings, their issues when they got Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, they paired them together, and those two became the best duo in the league. The Vikings' issue is they decided that was good enough. That two receivers is good enough to get us to where we need to go, not understanding the fact that we need to find another one, because what if, in case of a situation like what happened with Stephon Diggs, what if an injury happens? Like all these things that my issues with what the Vikings have done, outside the fact that they've chose a running back and the run game over their two elite receivers, is to not continuously repeat these mistakes, to Eric's point. But outside of just not repeating the mistake from Diggs to Jefferson, here's an idea. Let's not wait until Adam Thielen is over the hill based off age and ability. Let's not wait to help him out by adding another weapon to that group earlier in the process, rather than waiting until it's a need. It's a need now, not a need in 2 to 3 years.
Look at the AFC Championship game. Okay,
Right.
The Bills traded a number 1 for Diggs. They already had John Brown and Cole Beasley, and in the 4th round they took Gabriel Davis, who caught 7 touchdowns for them this year. The Chiefs spent $16 million APY on Sammy Watkins because Mahomes was on his rookie deal. They have Tyreek Hill, they have Travis Kelce, and Sammy Watkins catches balls for 100 yards in the AFC title game that they lose to the Patriots 2 years ago. And they used their first draft pick of 2019 on McCole Hardman. It's just, and so Watkins sits out the AFC title game this year with an injury. And, and look, McCole Hardman's not perfect, but like he's the next guy up, and he's pretty damn good. And it's an intentional thing. The Chiefs, like, they just sort of work around, the players. Like, they're 3 starting corners. One guy's a street free agent. The other guy's a 7th round pick, and the other guy's a 4th round rookie. Like, it's they do these things at the expense of other things, and you make the bets in the proper places. The Vikings, I think, did that in many ways this year, and obviously they were probably depending too much on rookies in hindsight, but they have to press the edge even further, because you're not going to get a better. I mean, even Randy Moss regressed in year 2. Even Sidney Rice and Percy Harvin regressed after their brilliant years. You have to go into 2021 as though Kirk and Justin Jefferson are going to be 90% of what they were this year.
I think it all comes back to who the offensive coordinator is, and when they intend to seriously compete again. Because to me, the 2021 offseason should be an offseason of heirs. It's an heir apparent for Riley Reif, if that's not Ezra Cleveland, an heir apparent for Adam Thielen, an heir apparent for Harrison Smith. And if they're choosing to plug holes next to those aging veterans instead of drafting to develop behind those aging veterans, you're going to get a pretty it's going to be a binary hit or miss type season, just like every single Vikings season has been up to this point. Let me put it that way.
I agree with you 100%. And to your point too, to bounce off that a little bit, is the draft shouldn't be about plugging just immediate holes. That's the issue. Of how people view the draft is you have to, like the Viking, like people, you'll hear people talking right now, that 1st round pick has to be a defensive lineman or it has to be an offensive lineman. It can't be anything else, because those what are viewed as the immediate holes. It's not just about immediate holes. It's about long-term potential for these rookies. And yes, do you need and want those rookies to be impactful as rookies? Of course you do. But at the same time, it's not just a year 1 fix. It's a long-term fix. That's what that's what young players are supposed to be about. They're supposed to be about the future. The vets and the guys that have been in the building are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be the core, and you're supposed to be recouping that core as you go. That's what the draft picks are for. So I'm just sick of viewing. I'm just sick of viewing the.
Donnie, I think
like,
we found out who needs the shot. No, we're all in agreement there. So, man, I can't. We went straight down to it. I'm going to be honest with y'all. We did not know what we were going to talk about before the show started, and that all just happened. We got one more thing to talk about, though.
Well, I'm about to say, the one reason we wanted Eric on tonight was to talk about fourth down decisions.
We got to talk fourth down.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
It's 31-23. It is first, then second, then third, then fourth and goal from the 8-yard line. You're down by 8 with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left, and you have 3 timeouts. Pathetic. Eric, just to frame the conversation to start, what does the data say? What do the analytics say to do in this situation? And how confident are the numbers in that?
Well, first off, the data tells you don't have that good of a chance to win. So while I think LaFleur gets a lot of crap, the obviously the place where he messed up or the team messed up was playing Scotty Miller in single coverage at the end of the first half. So that play had way more leverage than anything that he was going to do on that play. We had an about 11% chance to win if you go for it, about a 7.5% chance if you kick the field goal. I do think that there is a place to kick the field goal down 8. I just believe you need more time on the clock. Because essentially with 2 minutes left, and you actually got a decent amount of help from Tampa in the form of their kick returner falling down in front of the 2-minute warning.
So dumb.
And they honestly got too many yards on the first down to the point where you could jump off sides and give yourself a help too there. And then they accepted the penalty, which again is kind of silly.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
So you got some help there, but essentially you put it into a position where you have to make one stop, and your defense has been basically trashed the whole game. If you don't get interceptions in that game, you're rolled, right? And a lot of those interceptions were, tip balls, bad passes, things that you didn't force. So that, but at the same time, it's not like a 10% win probability swing because you barely had a 10% chance to win going into the play. So that's where the tail of the tape was. Just think about it this way. And I like to think about it this way. Let's assume that you do not, because one of the things I tweeted out when it was about 5 or 6 minutes left in the game is I said, Green Bay should not approach this drive as if they're down by 1 score. They should approach this drive like they're down by 1.5 scores.
Yes.
Because really only in the luckiest situation do you actually convert both plays. And even then, if let's say they convert the 4th down and the 2-pointer, you give Tampa Bay 2 minutes,
opportunity,
tie game, 3 timeouts. So, and I think that's what's going into the decision to kick the field goal, because then the next touchdown wins the game for you no matter what the conversion is.
And you're asking the Bucs to play more conservative on offense too, because they're up still, and so they're going to play more conservative. I understand.
That's my next question, Eric. Is so there's an idea that do you want when you kick the field goal, you're also changing how aggressive or conservative the other offense is going to be. So do the numbers account for that? And how do you weigh the numbers with the fact that the opposing quarterback is Tom Brady and you have Aaron Rodgers?
Well, those go into the team level strengths, right? So, I think Ben Baldwin's model doesn't do that. I think it just has the point spread in there, so you get like the relative strengths, but you really don't know how they're comprised. Ours has the actual quarterbacks in, so that factors in. As far as the the aggressiveness. That's, I think, where the leak is in the models, in the sense that, you know, we're basically just taking how aggressive a team with Tom Brady would be up 5. Now, if that were to change over time, that'd be something the models would be slow to account for, right? It would just, it would have the data from 2020, 2019, right? But over time, teams have just gotten more aggressive. So, you know, take the Chiefs with Chad Henne 2 weeks ago. So there might be, you know, I think that is in the model, but it's probably not as accounted for as what people think. But it's a great question. I mean, it's a great one. To me, my thing is assume that you don't make the 2-point conversion. In what order would you rather have the field goal? Because conditional on being, like, the idea is that you got 3 interceptions in the third quarter, and you didn't move the ball on 2 of those drives at all.
Right.
So you've already gotten to the 8-yard line.
Right.
So what are the chances you even get close to the 8 again?
That's where I'm at.
Yep.
That's why I'm not in favor of kicking a field goal on the front end of drives. Like, if you're on 4th down and let's say you're down 10, that's fine. Kick the field goal. But when Carolina kicked the field goal on 1st down, I'm like, well, look, you've already gotten the hard part of all of this down, which is to get the ball to the 15-yard line, to get the ball to the 8-yard line. If you get the ball back down 5, you still have to score. And whereas if you go for it and you miss the PAT or the 2-point conversion, you only need a field goal next. And that's a lot. I mean, with kickers as rangy as they are now, you basically just have to get the ball to 35. And that's an immense there's so much. I mean, it was sort of like when the Vikings played Carolina, and it was like, you know, when Bridgewater got the ball back, it's like it takes 2 throws, you know, whereas it takes a lot more to score a touchdown in that situation. So that's kind of the idea. And I think where people get a little bit, all you need is a touchdown and a field goal and the order doesn't matter. Well, actually, it kind of does if you're already at the other team's 10-yard line.
Right. Once you cross over that 30-yard line, basically, you know you have to be all in for that touchdown. So, Eric, you know, over the past few years, you know, I think there's a narrative that there's the old guard, non-analytics type coaches, maybe defensive coaches fall into that category, and there's these new school analytic focused coaches. But over the last few years, we've seen it doesn't matter what type of category people are trying to put these coaches in. I mean, we've seen Sean McVay get these decisions wrong. We've seen Kyle Shanahan do it. We've now seen Matt LaFleur do it. So what is it about?
Sean McDermott kicked 2 field goals in the AFC Championship game that, you know, unbelievable. Yeah.
Right. So what is it about these 4th down decisions that just, you know, causes such discourse around them?
I don't know about the LaFleur one. I legitimately think LaFleur might have had some internals that told him to kick that. And, you know, the problem is, again, if there's 4 minutes left, I might kick it. If there's, you know, the issue is again, the probability that you get a stop, it's not just getting a stop. It's getting a stop in the first 3 downs.
You're asking for everything to go. You're asking everything to go perfect.
Yeah. Whereas if there's 5 minutes left on the clock and I kick a field goal and then I kick it back, I don't need to get a 3 and out. I can get like 2. I can allow like 30 yards and a punt, and I'm still in the game. So my margin for error is so much, you know. So I think LaFleur probably, you know, and they have an analytics person. I think he's pretty sharp, and they obviously have said, look, you don't always have to go for the touchdown down 8. And then I think he extrapolated to a game situation that didn't warrant it. As far as the Buffalo coach, because they're a team that I think has been very aggressive on 4th downs this year, very aggressive on early down runs. I think that way, and this is where I sometimes give Vikings fans a hard time, but it's like, it was sort of one of those like hang a banner situations. It was the Chiefs are beating us by 12. If I can cut it to 9, that looks better, you know, as opposed to trying to win the game. which is, trying to win the football game often leaves you in a position to get blown out if the wrong side of the coin comes up. And I think we have to normalize being okay with getting blown out sometimes, because otherwise your schedule is going to be littered with close losses. And, close losses are better than obviously getting blown out, in a big sample. But in a game against Kansas City, for example, I was tweeting about this today. It's like, if you get blown out by the Chiefs, just welcome to the club, right? Like, go for it, because you're not beating. Mm-hmm. Look, if you make the game a one-score game in the fourth quarter and Mahomes gets his hand on the ball, you're losing. You're done. So what's the point of, like, to beat the Chiefs, you got to beat them by multiple scores. And even then, being up multiple scores, as we found out, is not enough. Bill O'Brien kicked a field goal up 21-0 against the Chiefs at Arrowhead last year in the divisional round. And like, mm-hmm. Then there was the Michael Jordan, I took that personally. And the Chiefs went off and rattled 28 straight on them, or 41 straight, I think it was, by the time it was all said and done. And, to me, I think it's about, going with the herd a little bit. When Belichick went for that fourth down against Indy, 10 years ago, he was bludgeoned for it. And he probably was the only coach in the game at the time who had the equity that could do it, right? And so I think it's partially that. I think it's partially trying to preserve, some measure of honor in a game like that. And to me, again, if I'm already in the AFC Championship game, I've had a successful season. I'm playing with house's money. I'm going for things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Yeah,
it's easier. Yeah, it's easier for us to say, but like to your point, Eric, like they knew going into the game that you're playing the Chiefs and settling for field goals isn't going to win you the game. They knew it.
And I totally agree with all of what Eric just said. Thank you so much for sharing, Eric. I think that's a very pragmatic way to look at it, and it's so refreshing to talk through this topic rather than just tweet at people and have all that back and forth. But like, to me, it's almost like this fourth quarter decision issue is just a magical look into the human element into this football game, to the point where, like, I'm like, coaches do these nonsensical things all the time, and it almost adds to the spectacle of the game. So while I agree that, yes, Matt LaFleur probably should have gone for it in that situation, part of me is, number one, like you started the conversation with, Eric, they're already in a terrible situation that they should have avoided at that point of the game. And number two, I have no desire to see every fourth down decision be correctly called. That's just not one of my requests as a football fan. So why are people agonizing over it so much? Because in a world where chess is, two players being advised by the numbers to make every move, in a world where poker is the same things, numerically driven to the point where advice is given on every bet, on every hand, then it's not even the same game. It actually brings luck and a lack of chaos to the surface, where football is this magical thing where we can see the Bills offensive linemen get 3 penalties for protecting their quarterback. We can see Mecole Hardman redeem himself. We can see Tom Brady switch conferences and still make it back to the Super Bowl. And it's that magic of the human element that it doesn't make me disregard the analytics. I just don't feel a need to have such a discourse over it.
Yeah, for me, it's more of the, like, as I'm not, and everybody's, played at some, it's sort of like right now, and this might be a true point, Flip. Right now, the players are having their sleep monitored. They're drinking Chip Kelly shakes. They're having their heart. They're wearing those stupid, like, vests during practice so that We can get tracking data on how they perform in coverage during practice. All of that is probably giving them maybe a 1% higher chance of winning. Maybe.
Yeah.
And if I'm a player and I'm being put through this rat race, right? I kind of like when Bruce Arians, Brady comes off the field and they're going to punt. And Brady's like, fuck this. I want to go for this. And I want to give ourselves a chance to win. And he said, great. And because when LaFleur does that and dumps 3.5% win probability, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot compared to the minute stuff, the minute win probabilities that these players are any given Sunday quote where he's like, you're scrapping and clawing for that inch just so your coach could dump like yards and yards of theoretical value. And that to me is where I agree with you, Flip. The discourse around scrutinizing every single decision I think is tiresome. But I also, from a player's perspective, I would want a coach that respected my efforts enough to give my team the best chance to win all the time, especially when it's clear. Like there are borderline cases all over the place. Do you go for 2 in the third quarter? You kick a field goal, like the Packers, I think they should have gone for a touchdown in the first half near the goal line. All those things, I'm not going to give LaFleur crap for that because, the league's not ready for that yet. But in a situation like that, I'm thinking to myself, you have one time period when all of these players have given you their everything for an entire season, and to kind of do that, I just think is something that kind of rubs me the wrong way because I don't think he's intentionally doing that, but.
I understand the, optimize your players. And I understand that the definition of what a coach maximizing his chances to win means, that just the definition of that is changing. But when you talk about, honoring your players or even that language, like LaFleur bet on his defense. He challenged his defense. He gave his defense an opportunity to make one last impactful play to go out and win that game. And so while I understand that is less value than giving your offensive chance, I mean, those defenders still are saying that's on us for not being able to stop Tom Brady one more time. They got that opportunity and they understand that they failed.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going to be all like Goodwill Hunting and just say it's not your fault. Like, I feel like, I feel like, because to me, like, part of being a great leader, as we're talking about, is also just being honest with the adults in the room, right? And when you're, to put somebody in a position to fail and then blame, because that to me was always like Brad Childress's like problem which was, look, Brad Johnson can't make this bootleg. Well, Brad Johnson's 40 years old, okay? So to call a bootleg and then to blame the offense's ineptitude on his inability to run is your fault, not his fault. It's not his fault. To put Drew Samia out there for, X amount of games and then blame everything on, no, that's a you problem. That's not a Drew Samia.
Yeah,
Drew Samia is who he is. And so there's obviously a balancing act, right? Like the right move for the Patriots in 2014 was to let Marshawn Lynch score, and they trusted their defense, and they got one of the most historic interceptions in the history of football, right? So so again, I agree with you, Flip. It's not, there are shades of gray everywhere. I think that the shades of gray, though, as we continue to move them in a different direction, makes the game of football more entertaining. Like, no one wants to see Harrison Buckner kick field goals. Like, no one wants to see.
Shades. We love those shades of gray.
Yeah, and it is a balancing act between saying, look, I don't respect my defense at all, and I don't think they can get a stop at all, and putting some trust in them because they are NFL players who have pride and so on and so forth. So it's a good discussion. It really is a thing where I think everybody here doesn't want to see football become baseball. But I think football is fundamentally different in the sense that if every team's trying to optimize their chance to win, it becomes a more entertaining game. And that's, I think, what some people, hidden beneath the snark and the tweets, I think are going for.
Well said, Eric.
With that,
wow, what a show.
We've gone over an hour, and we've had some great talk back and forth.
Hey, real quick, I think Donnie left, but the only one that I think will be back is Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr's not going anywhere. It's the only thing.
Y'all, honestly, I know y'all wanted to talk about offensive coordinator, about Vikings draft, about free agency needs. We promise you it's a long offense season. We will get to that. I hope you enjoyed.
Clint Kubiak's going to be the OC anyways. I'm sure they'll announce it sometime this week.
It's not even the season. The off season hasn't even officially started yet. We're fine.
Exactly.
It's a long. Remember how long last off season was?
Yes, and it just dragged on because there was no summer activities and
Yeah. So until then, we hope you enjoy just this breakdown about the playoffs. Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Eric for making it in his car on the midnight road somewhere in middle America. Everybody joining us next week. We'll be talking with primarily one thing in mind, and that will be that matchup between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. First time that's ever happened. Not that it couldn't have a few years ago. And we'll be here. We want to thank everybody for joining us. And as always, Skol!
Skol Vikes.
Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.